It's time for the Western Conference Finals. We've got the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Should be quite a fascinating series. Ben, how are you feeling about it?
Mixed emotions because I didn't like the Thunder coming in. I've actually grown to like them a little bit more this playoffs, but they're a heavy favorite. The Thunder are. We're going to likely see them in the finals according to the betting odds, but we'll get into it.
Recapping that Timberwolves second round series, because there's really not too much to say about it. The Warriors without Curry had what I suppose you could call an offense, but I sure wouldn't. Their defense was still solid, but it was not a playoff team that the Timberwolves played in that series. And no surprise, they won quite easily. Like you were saying before we started this, they have not played a real game basically in like 2 weeks. They've been resting for significantly longer than the Thunder. It's, the games are pretty close together when you get to the playoffs, so it's not like they've been off for that long, but it's been a few days since they've played. The Thunder just finished a 7-game series. So in theory, the Timberwolves should be more rested, but, I thought that would be the case for the Thunder Nuggets series, and that was interesting.
Well, and the Timberwolves lost game 1 even having about the same rest period as they did for this series, so
true. And
Steph went down through half the game. I was kind of baffled that they didn't get swept because Timberwolves kind of threw the game 1 away. After Steph went down, we literally had like Buddy Hield as like the second ball handler in a lot of these games.
The Pythagorean.
After Jimmy said, Buddy never dribbled the ball. Seems to have aged a bit poorly there. And Jimmy Butler is not what many envision him to be. This has kind of been what he's done all season. He just kind of doesn't seem interested in having the basketball or participating in the offense for like most of the plays. I had some optimism that he would, after Steph went out, he would, shoot the ball or like play basketball with more intensity. I suppose even Sir James IV, with his love for basketball back, does not actually increase his production in any way, shape, or form. Accounting for everything, they were barely better than the Heat and worse than every single other team in the playoffs when Steph went down. So, and that's including all the play-in in the West. The team that got the number 1 overall pick was significantly better and it would have a significantly better chance at beating the Timberwolves than the Warriors here. So
that is simply Adam Silver's America, however.
So it's kind of hard to gauge where the Timberwolves are at. They have not played a center above 6'7" the entire playoffs.
Respect
Thunder have the double bigs. Yeah, my bad. But not much to say. We've probably said way too much about that series.
No doubt, yeah. We mentioned Buddy Hield. Probably shouldn't have happened.
Honestly, we could have taken out like the entire portion of what we just said because it's just Steph got hurt. There you go. That's the analysis.
We saw extended Kuminga first option minutes. That's all that needs to be said about that.
Kind of an indictment on Steve Kerr though, because he looked good.
I mean, that whole thing was an indictment on Steve Kerr because he clearly had no fucking clue what to do without Steph, which, I mean, that's fair. He's your best player, but I don't even mean he couldn't find a way to score without his best offensive player. I mean, he was throwing Braxton Key in the game in a close series, or in a close game. It was by no means a close series, excuse me.
Pat Spencer got a ton of run in the game 5. What are we doing here?
Shout out Pat Spencer, but come on, man. With way too much said about that bullshit, we've got the Thunder beating the Nuggets in 7. And yes, they won the series, but they did not really look all that great for most of it. With the exception of Game 2 and Game 7, I think you could argue that the Nuggets were the better team.
Yeah, but I also would say that if Dagnall is not an idiot in game 1, that
True.
they win in 5. So
very true.
Because it turns out when there's 20 seconds left with the shot clock turned off, you should not foul up 3.
Yeah, that should happen with like 4 seconds left.
Yeah, because worst case scenario, they make a 3, you miss both free throws, and they have a chance to win the game or go to overtime, and you lost in regulation. And then you keep fouling, like, immediately as they catch the ball. Like, this isn't a lethal three-point shooting team. This is like one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the entire playoffs, and you're fouled. So maybe that was just a one-time blunder.
Something important that I took away from that series, which obviously could change because a lot can happen quickly in the playoffs, but the Thunder, did not look like they knew how to close out a game against the Nuggets. Every time it was close down the stretch, for the most part, they had a bunch of errors. They essentially threw the game away multiple times in games they should have won. That is pretty concerning if you are a supporter of the Third Reich, aka the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't know if I trust them in clutch situations, especially because this Timberwolves team, at least against the Lakers, looked really good in clutch minutes. Who could say if either of those things will translate to this series? Because looking at even the regular season and past series, like I said before, has not helped in predicting these playoffs. I do have one more thing to say, and that is, for the most part, rare exception, Jalen Williams was fucking terrible. I think it'll be much worse for him with the Timberwolves defense, which is overall just a lot better than the Nuggets defense.
I don't see it getting any worse for Jalen Williams. He just shot completely terribly, and they still won in 7. They won in game 5, down after the first quarter, and then just completely opened it up past then. They kind of had some jitters in the first quarter, kind of overcame that. So I do think that helped them, not hurt them. It hurts them because they didn't get to rest, because they didn't close out the series in time, but they know that like some nights shots aren't going to fall and you can still beat, a former championship team. I also think that the Thunder, kind of looking ahead to the Timberwolves series, they do seem to be more of like a perimeter-oriented team where they do have the double big, but they also at any point in time can have 3 interchangeable guys other than Shea on the wings, and they're good at getting deflections, forcing turnovers, and not turning the ball over. So a lot of what the Timberwolves feasted on with the Warriors is tons and tons of turnovers, and they're good in transition. The Timberwolves are. So I think that will hurt their efficiency of their offense a lot, the Timberwolves offense. I won't get too ahead of myself on the whole series. I'll let you chime in here.
Not a whole lot more to say about the Thunder and the Nuggets. I will say this, if Westbrook randomly shot 48% from 3 like he did against the Clippers on the same shots, they would have easily won. That was just a fascinating thing that happened in that series. That will never happen again. Shout out to Julian Strother for Game 6. That was fascinating. I do just think the better team won that series, although the more experienced team made it difficult for them.
All right, I'll kick it off with the second round series reactions here. First off, Timberwolves versus Warriors. I think this kind of went how we all expected. Timberwolves dropped game 1, caught by surprise by, a Buddy Hield masterclass, and then win the next 4. It never really felt to me like the Warriors were in this series. The offensive firepower just isn't there, and then once Curry goes down, it was pretty much wraps from there. You get some good pods and Kuminga performances after that, but there's just not nearly enough going on for the Warriors to do anything. This was, I think, the same thing we saw happen to the Lakers, where the size and rebounding just kills these small ball lineups. And every day that goes by, I wonder what the Jimmy trade was all for, They win the first round in essentially fluke against the worst 2 seed in recent memory in the Rockets. And then they get bounced in 5 by the 6 seed Timberwolves, and Jimmy doesn't really give you anything above his regular season production. So you've essentially lost a first and a player who's worth some more assets in Wiggins for a team with a second-round exit ceiling, I think I'm honestly even more pessimistic about the Warriors' future after this. So now moving on to Thunder versus Nuggets. So the Thunder, I really felt like they were trying to sell this, especially in the first half of the series. Some really bad clutch decision-making from both Dagnall and a couple of their players down the stretch in games 1 through 4, as well as some J-Dub stinkers. And all season, I've kind of felt that OKC has this big weakness with on-ball scoring and playmaking when Shea's, not on the floor or not involved. And I feel like this series was super indicative of that. Whenever Shea left the floor, it just fell apart super quickly. And then even when he was on the floor, J-Dub and Chet let him down in several key moments. And a lot of the other backcourt guys couldn't provide consistency. And I'm being all negative about them, even though they won the series, just because I feel like it should not have come down to a Game 7. Obviously, they, blow out the Nuggets in Game 7, but I think these offensive inconsistencies from the Thunder are really something to worry about going forward. For the Nuggets, I honestly think they played about as well as they could have. The Thunder did a pretty solid job on Jokic, but, a couple other guys stepped up. Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, there was even a Julian Strother game. They all had individual good games, but you never saw them all come together and have great performances on the same night, which I think is really what's necessary to, have a championship ceiling, and that's why the Nuggets have gone out the way they have for the past 2 seasons. And, when Jokic is getting harassed like he was, you just need those guys to make up for the playmaking and creation, and there wasn't that. Jokic still had a great scoring series. I mean, that was kind of inevitable against a small team like OKC. But, the assist numbers dropped a lot, and they were, messing up the passing lanes. I think that's probably a big part of these offensive inconsistencies. Let's talk about Wolves versus Thunder. I'm also really excited for this one. I think a lot of this is going to come down to Ant and how well he can keep control of the ball and initiate the offense against a team with a perimeter defense like OKC. The handles, obviously, when he got into the league, Ant's handle was a bit of a weak point. It's definitely gotten better, but I think it's still one of his less strong areas. And those OKC perimeter guys, Lou Dort, Caruso, they are elite at forcing steals and picking off these bad ball handlers. And I have sort of similar concerns for Conley as well, just because he's so old, unathletic. I think he can trap him really easily. But I also think those offensive issues for OKC that I was talking about earlier are also, going to cause some problems. I think you can double Shea and get away with it, or you can put Jaden McDaniels on him and force Ant to guard someone bigger and also get away with it, just because I don't think the skill is there to exploit that. And Chet's shooting from 3 is also a big concern of mine. It was really pretty poor. I think he only shot above 50% or above 40% for one game, and it was on 2 attempts. I think he shot 1 of 2 for one game, and then was pretty terrible for the rest of it. And if that stays the case, that means Gobert can sag off him and get into the paint, which is an issue for, Shea, J-Dub, all these guys that like to attack the rim. So for that, I think I'm going Wolves in 7. I think a lot of that has to do with just the trajectories of these teams, all playoffs. I think I was really pretty underwhelmed by Denver taking OKC to 7, and I was really surprised by the Timberwolves' performance against the Lakers. It feels like Minnesota's gone up and OKC's trended down, basically. Between the terrible clutch time decision making and just playoff dropping from a lot of the role players, I think, Minnesota is a better team than Denver, who just took them to 7. So I think for those reasons, they can really take advantage of that. Randall stayed at a high level. Jaden McDaniels has still been locked down, and we've seen Gobert dominate against 2 other teams in the Warriors and the Lakers with the 5-out capability like OKC. So I think this will be close, but I like the way Minnesota's trending more, I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm going to do something I do not normally do in these series, and that's predict a specific game. I've got the Thunder in Game 1. And that's because a trend I've been noticing this playoffs is that the team with more rest looks better by the end of the series, but in the first game, they have to shake off some rust. And the team that just played a Game 7 is still, in playoff mode, essentially. So just following that trend, I think Thunder probably take Game 1. Is that tomorrow? The Western Conference Finals Game 1?
Yeah, that's tomorrow, Tuesday, May 20th.
Matchup-wise, I am curious. We talked about this a little before the recording. I'm curious to see who Mark Daigneault puts on Julius Randle, because in my view, there's not really an obvious matchup for him in the Thunder's starting lineup, or even really on the Thunder's team. I do think what you were saying earlier, that it'll be Chet Holmgren on him, makes some sense, although Randall has some girth and tonnage on Chet. The most obvious matchup here is clearly Lou Dort on Ant. We rarely have seen in this league the type of physicality that Lou Dort plays with. We see it in Draymond Green mostly, if you're catching what I'm putting down there. The other way, the Timberwolves defense, I like it quite a bit against the Thunder, actually. McDaniels is probably one of the better options you could put on Shea, depending on how officials are calling that. He was not super efficient, especially in the Grizzlies series, and really not that crazy efficient in the Nuggets series, and now I think McDaniels would be the best defender that's played him in this playoff so far. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Shea struggle, but the Thunder, we've seen it in the past, they definitely have the capability to win even when Shea has a relatively inefficient night. Rudy Gobert has a pretty solid matchup in this series, I think. The Thunder kind of had some rebounding issues against the Nuggets. I was noticing that Jokic got quite a few rebounds. Not that it was terrible, but I think Rudy Gobert will be able to get on the board some. He'll be battling with Hartenstein down there, which will be somewhat interesting. I don't think either of them bring all that much offensively in this series if they're guarding each other especially. This is, like the Knicks and Pacers series, a tough one to predict because I think they match up well against each other, but in the opposite way, that I think both of their defenses match up well against the other team's offense. I think this will be a pretty low-scoring series, and it should be pretty close. I don't know, man. This one is super tough.
Yeah, so I'm just going to expound upon like the stuff I was talking about off the pod with Chet on Randall, which I would predict would probably be the matchup if they run the double bigs with Chet and Hartenstein, because Randall likes to bully ball. He's bullied a lot of smaller defenders, smaller and littler less girth and tonnage. Chet would probably be the best to defend him because the length will bother him shooting the ball a lot. If Randall shoots a lot of contested jumpers with Chet closing out, I think he'll get blocked a lot and revert to kind of the the Knicks Julius Randle in the playoffs shooting wise, and his length will bother him in the passing lanes because Julius Randle's been a good passer like when he gets help, but I don't think Chet's gonna need a whole lot of help unless you really have Randle backing him down 5-6 dribbles, and even then I think Chet can hold his own, at least like vertically, and I think his length can bother him passing wise and kind of alter his where he's going to throw his passes, which the Thunder have been really good the whole year about limiting their turnovers and increasing the opponent's turnovers. The Timberwolves haven't really taken care of the ball too well this playoffs, so I could see Randle averaging on a bad night 5 to 6, but definitely at least 4 turnovers a game, which will be huge for the OKC offense, especially like you said, if they do have trouble in the half court, getting out in transition will be huge for them. They got out in transition a lot versus the Lakers and the Warriors with them being high turnover teams, but they just won't get the opportunity in a lot of these games. That'll be an interesting thing to watch. Just like I said last series with the Nuggets Thunder, the turnover numbers are huge in determining the game. I also think that the Thunder probably just have better shooters. They got like 8 shooters, all around 6'5", all can play interchangeably, and defend pretty well. We also didn't mention Caruso. Caruso is huge in the game 7. I do see a lot of these games being close. The Thunder have a huge edge in the betting market, and they're highly favored. So I do see them squeaking out a lot of those close games.
Turnovers definitely could end up being a problem for the Timberwolves just because the Thunder create so many of them. In the same sense, though, I think the Thunder don't have a ton of ball handling. It's basically just Shea most nights. They don't have a whole lot of guard help that can actually handle the ball outside of him. So I think they could definitely see some turnover problems with all the good perimeter defenders the Timberwolves have. I think both teams will struggle in the half court, like you sort of brought up. The transition game will be huge, and I think both teams will get some opportunity there, but the Thunder probably will get a few more just because they are so good in the passing lanes. I'm going to go Timberwolves in 7, just based on the clutch performance that we saw from them in the first 2 rounds compared to what we saw from OKC against Denver last round. I just think I trust them more when it comes down to it, and that's really not numbers-based or analytics-based. That is pure vibes, but that's how you got to do it in the playoffs. Otherwise, you end up predicting both Eastern Conference finalists wrong, like I think all 3 of us did. And honestly, most analysts everywhere did that. So maybe the West is easier to predict. I don't know. I'm still going with the vibes that the Timberwolves are better closers. That's going to be the difference for me because I think both of these teams are relatively evenly matched with how they're playing right now. We'll see if the Timberwolves have just been beating up on fraud non-playoff squads, though, because that is certainly possible. They will be playing a center for the first time, like you said, so we'll see how that affects them, but I think they'll be all right with Gobert down there.
The underdog is obviously the Timberwolves in the betting side, so I never really want to predict the favorite. I would say the going back to the East, I really would have picked, like, they needed to pick just one regular season game. Can you just not go 0-4 versus the Celtics and I might be able to pick you? Like,
yeah, can you beat one good team one time? Like, yeah. The regular season don't even matter anymore.
Yeah, I will say I think they'll drop a game or two. So I was leaning Thunder in 5. I'll take Thunder in 6. Like you said, the Thunder will win game 1, in all likelihood. I do think they'll win both their home games, and then probably split the Timberwolves home games and be up 3-1. And then it's just a matter of, are they losing in 5 or are they losing in 6? I just don't think they have enough playmaking. Like, I'm not moved by Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, DiVincenzo. It's really Randall and Ant, and I think that I'd say at least 2 games this series, you're going to get Randall and Ant both under 40% from the field, combined 8 turnovers, and that'll just be the end of those 2 games. Like I said, I'd like to pick the Timberwolves here, but the Thunder just didn't shoot all that well from 3 and still beat the Nuggets. The Timberwolves aren't a huge 3-point shooting team either. I think we didn't touch on Jaden McDaniels like offense, but I'm not sure that we really need to against this Thunder team because they kind of have, I wouldn't say the perfect defenders for Jaden McDaniels, but they got Dort, Caruso, Shea. If they want to run that 3-man, I guess they're all guards technically, but either one of those 3 can stick Ant, Conley, or Jaden McDaniels. So I just don't think the Timberwolves offense is well structured enough to really take this to 7. If they could force a game 7, they have a shot, but I honestly don't even think they'd win the game 7 in Oklahoma City. Yeah, I think the Timberwolves would have beat the Nuggets for sure. Probably in 5. Thunder in 6 is the official prediction there.
Yeah, I'll give a moment to Jaden McDaniels' offense because it's been pretty good throughout the whole season, honestly. And in the playoffs, he's been pretty good. Like you were saying, I think the Thunder sort of have the facilities to stop that from being a big factor. The conference finals are 2 different styles of basketball this year. This will be, if you enjoy defense, watch this series. Personally, I think it'll be evenly matched. I think we will get one because we're yet to see one. I'm holding out hope for a DiVincenzo lore-accurate legacy game because he had quite a few of those for the Knicks last year. You know, he had like 40 in Game 7 against the Pacers?
Granted, I don't recall specifically, but yeah.
That did not end up mattering like for them, but, you know, he's been pretty bad, honestly, in the playoffs. At least efficiency-wise. If they get anything out of him, that's obviously a huge bonus. This is a tough one for me, but like I said, I'm going Timberwolves in 7. Ben, you're Thunder in 6. And
yeah.
We'll see how this plays out. You have any more thoughts on this one?
We have cousin-on-cousin action here. No Kanye. We got Nickeil Alexander-Walker versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So
that is
we might see that. We might see that matchup. I thought of that on the fly. I
off the dome.
We didn't mention Naz Reid. Like that could be a big
true
swing tipping factor. But I mean, if he gets matched up on Chet, I think he's not locked up. But you know, it's a pretty good matchup for the Thunder. So
we're gonna see Caruso on Naz Reid minutes this series. Mark my words. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm saying it's the type of shit Mark Daigneault will do.
Honestly, that's not even that bad because he's kind of not a sloppy ball handler, but like he kind of gets away with it because he's usually on a big.
Yeah, I mean, he takes away the ISO stuff. I think maybe the size mismatch would be a bit of a problem if he gets into the paint. But, I mean, Naz Reid's not like a bruiser or anything either. But I think he could probably finish over him. We'll see. We'll see what Mark tries to do here. If it's anything like what they did against the Nuggets, they could have some issues. I think he kind of had a bad series there, but all we can do now is just wait and see.
Indeed, we will see if Anthony Edwards survives getting switched from Dort to Caruso or from Dort to Caruso to Shai. To not looking good for Ant, particularly matchup-wise, but
the health of his legs is in question. He may not last a minute in the torture chamber. Thanks for watching our Western Conference Finals preview. If you made it this far, be sure to like, leave a comment, tell us what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't, and once again, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.